Timothy Sullivan. Timothy Sullivan. Ronald Ludwig. Robert Kanabi. Jake Dye. Jeffrey D'Amico. Frederick Court.
Served on the Canal Advisory Committee actually several different times. Yes, ma'am?
Could you please lean into the mic? We're having trouble hearing you.
You want me to start again? Oh, I have to hit the button?
Yes, you. Real quick, if it's okay, I'd like to go over the microphone tips with everyone. When you go to speak, ensure the light around the microphone's on-off button is green. That means it's on. Speak directly into the microphone, approximately 6 inches or so away from it. Make sure you lean forward toward the microphone when speaking and face it even when you're addressing fellow board members or referencing material displayed on the projector. Thank you.
You mean the instructions right there in front of me? I'd like to take a moment to recognize one of our colleagues who has recently passed, Fred Hannon. Fred served on the Canal Advisory Committee several stints, most recently in his second term, but in total over 6 years of service. Fred was a quiet member, but when we began to talk about things having to do with construction, all of a sudden he perked up and we would hear stuff which I didn't know he knew stuff about, and I was very surprised. We got to know him over that time, and I got to know him only through the Canal Advisory Committee, but he also served, as I know, as a Commodore at the Isles Yacht Club, and Jake followed him some years later as a Commodore and knew him perhaps better than, certainly better than I did, and maybe others. So Jake, some things that you might have to say about Fred.
I think everybody who knew Fred knew he was a very unique guy, very capable, and he didn't go around telling everybody about what he knew or what he could do, but when he thought he could apply himself, he always did, and you were always amazed at his depth of knowledge in marine construction, in deep water salvage, into deep water diving. Fred was very accomplished in so many different areas, to include he was a pilot. In fact, he spoke one day giving instructions on how to appropriately crash into trees and save yourself. So, I mean, Fred was an amazing guy. He was a good friend, a lot of fun to be around. He's going to be missed by a lot of people.
And we will certainly miss him here. So I'd ask for, if you would, bow your heads for a moment of silence, remembering Fred Hannon. Thank you. Okay, on to one other announcement. The next meeting is scheduled for October 17th here in this room. And I also have, does anyone now know that they would have difficulty making that meeting? Seeing no one raising their hand. And then I would like to make a request, which you would all have to agree to, subject to the availability of the space, to move the November meeting, which would be scheduled for the Monday prior to Thanksgiving, November 21st, to the week following. So sometime during the week of the 28th, again, depending on the availability of the space. I think the 28th is not available, Sarah, so it might have to be the Tuesday or Wednesday or so after that. Does anybody have any objection to that? Seeing none, then we'll pend the availability of the space. If Sarah and the clerk's office can work that out and let us know. We'll set that meeting date and work with staff to gear up for that. Thank you for that accommodation. It's helps my Thanksgiving travels.
Would it be all right if we, just to keep things as simple as possible for you, 1:30 on the 29th, perhaps?
That Tuesday? Tuesday, the 29th at 1:30?
Would that be acceptable for us to
Does
explore?
that work for everybody?
That's fine with me.
So be it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Right now is a time for public comment. This is public comment on items of a general nature, not on the two special permits that will be discussed later on. So if there's anything that anyone wishes to speak about, the floor would be yours. If you are interested, we would ask you to come to the podium and identify yourself and say whatever you have to say. Any interest? Seeing none, we'll move on then. So you have received in your packet of information the minutes of our last meeting, June 20th, 2022. What's your pleasure with those minutes? Mr. Sullivan? Uh-huh. Yes, I see that. I didn't see that. So,
Excuse me, Mr. Sullivan, could you make sure your mic is on? We can hardly hear you. Thank you.
It wasn't.
Thank you.
so Mr. Sullivan is noting that the minutes should be corrected to show his attendance at that meeting. Any other changes, corrections that anybody else has? So with that change, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Jake Dye, move to approve.
Mr. Knobby moved.
Second.
Mr. Dye will second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. The next order of business is finance reports. And Kathy, I'm not sure how you're going to go through. We don't need to go through June, July, and August, do we? Or
No.
Okay.
For the record, Kathy Miller, Canal Maintenance. In your package, you do have 3 months of reports, but we can just look at the most current one, which is August. Were there any questions or concerns?
Anyone have any questions or concerns? All right, seeing none, let's move on to the budget utilization reports. And again, do we need to go through all three or just the last one?
No, if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to go with the last one.
Thank you.
So I want to remind you that we do have some invoices still being processed for inlet dredging, so that money will be spent. And I do have, we do the barge canal once a year, that one under mangrove trimming. I still have that invoice coming in yet. So we still do have some invoices we're processing. We're not at our year end. In our October meeting, we'll go over our year-end numbers and then our proposed numbers for the next fiscal year, if that's okay.
All right, thank you. Any questions on budget utilization? Seeing none, C-roll replacement status report, June, July, and August.
Any questions or concerns?
Anybody, questions or concerns? I have an observation, not a question or concern, and it will relate to a later subject. It's my OCD, I'm pretty sure. I went through just looking at the over-under, if you will, of the estimated length and actual length.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are good. There's less than a 2%
You're
error
scaring
rate.
me. You're scaring me. Hang on.
It does pertain to the discussion later on about the plan for 22-23 in terms of the estimated linear feet. You're so good, we're cranking that projected plan up to 50% more.
Yes.
Hope you can be as good then too. So.
Yes. So let's not forget, this year alone, we had 985 lineal feet of failure. That's a lot. That's a lot. So not only did we borrow money from our reserves to pay for those replacements, but we also moved some of those projects to the next fiscal year because we were running out of funds. So I just wanted to make you guys aware of that.
Yep. Any other points on seawall replacement? We'll move along to permits authorized by city staff.
Okay. Any comments on those?
82 total.
Any changes? I mean, are we tracking about normal monthly number of permits?
I'll be honest with you, I think there's a lot more compared to months past. I
Should-
did not count
should
them,
be.
I apologize, but
Yeah.
it does seem like we do have a lot more.
Any other comments, questions on permits authorized by city staff? I know Brian has been working with the building department. Any update on that? I don't mean to put you on the spot. I guess I do, but are you no longer interim, but now actual, fully official?
Correct. Yes, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Brian Clemens, Public Works. So there's been some communication. We haven't, we haven't done much. There seems like there's more communication over to us. We haven't really changed anything yet. Gary and I have started compiling a list of things that we think we may need to update in Chapter 6 to bring some things, make them a little clearer. So I hope to bring that to you at a future date.
Okay, good.
So-
Thanks, Brian. Punta Gorda Isles Capital Improvement Status Report.
Good afternoon. For the record, Gary Disher. And similar to Kathy's, I know I was talking with Laurel, who puts these agendas together. When we have June, July, August stacked like this, and especially on the capital improvement status and the master permit agreement, do you mind if we just put in that latest month? Because it's just me adding to it. It didn't seem like,
And not much change.
Not much change, yes. All right, sounds good. I'll let her know we can do that for the future projects. And then on to the capital improvement status project. Spoil site channel, I am working with the consultant on getting their final scope to be able to actually go for the permitting of this. So we're working on dialing in that scope right now to get him authorized with a PO to start our permitting process.
When last we left this subject, my recollection is that we deferred further discussion of how we're going to pay for it and who has to approve how we're going to pay for it. Any update on that?
Not at this time. no.
Okay.
Yep. And then as for the Ponce de Leon, as for the Ponce de Leon inlet widening project, would you like me to remove that one from this list? I mean, we've kind of put that one off to the side a while ago now, and I don't believe that one's going to be coming back up anytime soon.
Anyone have any objections to that? No.
All right.
All right. Any other comments, questions on capital improvement status? Master permits?
Master permits, all right. As you can see there, Army Corps received an update from National Marine Fisheries Services on August 31st, saying that the BO is working its way through the system prior to signature, and the BO is the biological opinion, and that's what Army Corps needs, the biological opinion from National Marine Fisheries Services to write the permit. So I guess we're getting a little closer. And then on our dredging permitting, we had a bit of a snag. We had a phone conference with DEP on August 22nd. The section chief there had retired, kind of an abrupt retirement, and so they've got a new person to work with there. And they have now determined that instead of the way we're running our permitting now, they want us to go in and submit applications for exemptions on all of the things that are considered maintenance dredge. So much for being in the system as of what we submitted January 14th of 2022, and we're just now finding out that they want us to go a different direction with all of the maintenance items. And then the consultant has submitted a 6th request to Army Corps trying to get an update on the project with no word back from them at all. So we're still trying to push the dredging permitting through. But we're no closer than we were, I guess, 9 months ago.
Is there, I don't know whether our lobbyist is the right person, but calling our representatives or senators, that kind of thing?
I believe that has been done through city manager's office, and he was sent an email describing this here this morning, just letting him know where we were at. Because unfortunately, we had the boat club grant through Marine Advisory Committee Council of $200,000 to dredge that channel. We were told we would have a permit by September 30th. There's no way we're going to have a permit by September 30th, so we're going to have to let that one, die on the vine and then have to reapply for funds next fiscal year. And the other thing, DEP CAMA staff, which is the aquatic preserve staff, they want to go out and look for seagrasses within the limits of the aquatic preserves inside the dredged channels. I guess it happened at Pirate Harbor where they found some seagrasses, so now CAMA staff has to go dive all the inlets to look for seagrasses. So that's yet another snag. They've got it scheduled on their books for September 29th and 30th. Seagrass growing season stops September 30th. So they're cutting us down to the wire. If they can't get it swum by then, it's going to have to start June 1st of next year is the next earliest we can go out and swim and look for those grasses. So we may have another snag unless weather holds and they're actually able to get in the water on them 2 days and finish their channels.
No hurricanes. No.
Exactly.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Anything else, Gary?
No, sir.
All right. We now come to our quasi-judicial public hearings. So this is the point at which we will swear in anyone who wishes to speak on either of the special permits that we are scheduled to hear today. If you are here to speak on this, Sarah will swear you in. Anybody else other than Mr. Dye? And
Any members of the audience who would like to speak on these public hearings will need to stand and raise their right hands as well. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in today's proceedings?
I do.
When you're ready to speak, please approach the public podium, state your name, and indicate that you have been sworn. Thank you.
all right, so the first special permit is CCSP 01-2022.
Okay, I think I got it. For the record, Brian Clemens, Public Works. I'd like to introduce application number CCSP 01-2022 by Kiesling Construction on behalf of the owner, Rosemary Brown, of Lot 30, Block 20, Section 2, also identified as 2835 Coral Way. The applicant is proposing to add a second lift for personal watercraft. The reason for the special permit application is due to the second lift on a property with less than 85 feet of seawall, and the second lift, when rotated, being outside the structure limitation lines. Per Charlotte County GIS, the property has 80 feet of seawall. The canal is approximately 98 feet wide at this location. Based on staff's review of the application per Article 2, Section 2-1E4, favorable consideration is recommended. One thing I can tell you, we just did one of these for BSI. They did condition the approval that when it's not in use, it's rotated back onto the dock if you wanted to consider that. With that, I can turn it over to the applicant for any information they'd like to add.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Clemens? Mr. Dye?
For the record, Jake Dye, Keesler Construction, the agent for the applicant. I have been sworn in. It's another rotating lift like the sorry. It's the same as people.
Probably have to reintroduce yourself.
All right. Once again, Jake Dye, Keesler Construction, and I'm the agent for the applicant. I have been sworn in. This is right back where we've been before, the rotating lift. It's less than 85 feet, so we're required to do a special permit for it. Everything is in place. The only thing that's being added is the rotating lift. And to Brian's point, we actually, in our instructions to our customers, we always instruct them to ensure that the lift is rotated back onto the dock, even when the jet ski is being used, just so that it doesn't extend beyond the structural limitation line.
Is that an automated, carry a fob with you and click?
It's just like your regular lift. It's a GEM remote, works just like any other remote control.
Any questions for Mr. Dye?
Jeff D'Amico. So the remote control, it also rotated or just goes up and down?
Now, just up and down. You manually rotate it.
Yeah. Can it be rotated under the dock when not in use?
Not really, because the framework of the structure to include the guideposts would prevent it from going underneath the dock.
Okay. Without a jet ski on it even, it can't rotate?
Yeah, it won't go underneath the dock
Okay.
anyway.
Okay.
I have a question. I have a question, Ron Ludwig. Assuming that we have this restriction of putting rotating the unit back over the dock, if the person is in the water, how's that going to happen? When they're departing, and I don't see how.
Yeah.
How it's going to not be in the way while he's gone, or he
Yeah.
or she is gone.
So what they've been doing is they lower the jet ski into the water, float the jet ski, get on from the jet ski onto the dock, lift it up, rotate it around, and depart. We show them how to do that. Is it easy? Is it fun? No, but that's the procedure.
Do you have any experience that the owners actually do that once you've departed?
Well, we tell them to.
I assume you also tell them don't be on the jet ski when you're raising and lowering it.
Yeah, we tell them that as well. There are instructions right on the lift that tell you that you shouldn't ride the thing up and down. Now, do people do that? I bet somebody has at one point in time.
Any other questions for Mr. Dye? Anyone else wish to speak on CCSP 01-2022? Second time to speak on CCSP 01-2022. Third and last time on CCSP 01-2022. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing then.
So moved.
Mr. Knabe moves and Mr. Sullivan seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, noting Mr. Dye did not vote. What's your pleasure on this particular special permit.
Make a motion to approve.
Mr. Ludwig moves approval. Is there a second? Second. Mr. D'Amico seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Again, Mr. Dye not voting. So, thank you.
Yeah, I was going to add that I removed myself from the dais and did not participate in the vote of that special permit.
Great. Thank you. We'll move on then to special permit CCSP 03-2022.
Okay, for the record again, Brian Clemens, Public Works, I have been sworn. I would like to introduce application number CCSP 03-2022 by Charlotte County Seawalls on behalf of the owner, Vicki Arnold, of Lot 2, Block 29, Section 5, also identified as 231 Belvedere Court. The applicant is proposing to install a dock, a 3-piling lift, and a 2-foot wide by 10-foot catwalk. The reason for the special permit application is 2 of the pilings, a portion of the boat lift, and a portion of the 2-foot wide catwalk are outside the structure limitation lines. Per the submitted plans, this property has 30 feet of seawall, and the canal is approximately 132 feet wide at this location. Based on staff's review of the application per Article 2, Section 2-1E4, favorable consideration is recommended. With that, if you have any questions for me,
Any
we can turn
questions
it
for Mr. Clemens? Anyone else wish to speak on CCSP 03-2022?
Hi, my name's Katie Evans. I'm with Charlotte County Seawalls, and I have been sworn in. And the customer is unable to make it today, but she wanted me to express that previously the lot that is to the, if you're facing the water, I guess it would be to the east, was approved to have their lift and dock redesigned. In doing so, the Debbie Arnold at 231 was blocked, so she is not able to use her 3-piling lift. So we're going to be redesigning it and turning it so she's able to access it, because as is right now, she cannot because of the other property's dock and lift.
Let me understand. So what we're looking at now, we're thinking is going to be redone?
No, sir. What is proposed will eliminate the issue at hand, which is what is existing there now, she's unable to use. So we're going to be turning the existing lift and then putting in a dock and catwalk so she can access it.
Okay. And this will work with whatever that neighbor is doing?
Yes, the neighbor has already completed their construction, so this would make the end of the canal usable for everyone.
Okay. Go ahead.
Brian Clemens for the record. This is one we did the CCSP. I should have gotten the number. It's the one I'm circling with my cursor right now a while back. And this is kind of one of those ones where the existing dock they fit it within the 45 and it blocked everything in. It was at a previous meeting and she had agreed that she was going to redo it. That's how we moved the other one forward.
Okay. So you're up to speed on what everybody is doing here?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes.
And still recommended?
Yes, sir.
Yes, okay.
As it's drawn here is the configuration. Everything would be constructed.
Thank you. Any questions for Charlotte Seawall or Mr. Clements? Anybody else wish to speak then on any other comments or questions from staff? From committee?
Yeah. Ron Ludwig, I'm a little confused. The notes say remove existing dock. The only existing dock I see identified appears to be the dock next door.
The current existing dock that's at 231 Belvedere is not on this plan because this plan is what is proposed. If you look at the aerial, which may or may not be in the last part of your attachments, you can see what is existing there. And it is a small dock, and
I don't think this is. Sorry, it doesn't exactly move fluid. This doesn't have the,
so as you can see on lot 1, doesn't show any of the structures that are there now. And then lot 2, her boat lift is parallel to the seawall, so she's not able to access it now because of the existing structures that are on lot 1.
Do you see a dock? Okay, so just so, excuse me, just so that I'm clear, it didn't look like there was a dock in that picture that showed the boat. Is it a very small dock?
it's,
I believe it's a very small dock that is against the seawall. So we're going to be removing that and then putting in a new dock.
In the configuration that was?
Yes, the configuration that is the engineered print.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the committee? Anyone else wish to speak then on CCSP 03-2022? Second time to speak on CCSP 03-2022. Third and last time on CCSP 03-2022. We'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing then.
Move to close public hearing?
Mr. Dye moves.
Second.
Mr. Knabe seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Discussion or a motion?
Move to approve CCSP,
03.
yeah, whatever that one was.
03-2022.
I can't find it.
Is there a second? Mr. Sullivan seconds. We'll get you in the record so we don't miss you in the next minutes. All those in favor of CCSP 03-2022, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposing votes? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. All right. It's under now. That closes all of the quasi-judicial public hearings. So we now have a rather detailed staff comment section here. So
For the record, am I up next? Yes. For the record, Kathy Miller, Canal Maintenance. In your packets were 2 maps, which I need to explain a little bit. The north zone, that map showed, let me open up mine. So you can see on the bottom, it showed the number 5 rated seawalls, which were red, and the number 4 rated seawalls, which were blue. It is not the map that's up on the screen. Let me take that. Do you mind if I take that down? Okay. So the reason, this map here is from our 2021 seawall assessment. If you remember, we agreed that we were going to do the north zone one year and then the south zone the next year. So this particular map was inspected and the assessment was done in fiscal year 2020, 2021. So it would have been January 2020 and, I'm sorry, December 2020, January and February of 2021. So I included the seawall replacement projects that were still under construction at that time. And that is that brown, it's supposed to be a brown colored, but when it was printed and copied, it looks a little more like a dark purple. Okay? Just so you can see where I think it's important that you guys have a visual map of seeing the wall replacements that we're doing compared to the walls that are new. On this map, it also shows the epoxy-coated and the MMFX seawalls, so you can see the seawalls that are not original seawalls. And you can see in some areas, we're starting to close gaps on canals and stuff. Were there any questions about the north zone?
For those of us who are colorblind,
My apologies.
there's no cure for it, so I did the best I could figuring it out, so, yeah. And give me a little relationship of this to the seawall replacement work program proposed for 22-23. Anything that,
So in your packets, you should have had a list of seawall replacement projects. Hang on a second.
Right.
And let me see if I can give you a little bit of history, okay? In fiscal year 2021, our budget was $1.5 million, and we replaced 4,894 lineal feet, plus an additional 177 failed seawall, lineal feet of failed seawall, okay? In this fiscal year 21-22, our budget was $2,004,000, and we replaced 6,567 lineal feet. However, this year we did have 985 lineal feet of failed seawall, okay? Our proposed budget for fiscal year 2022-2023 is $3,231,900. We are proposing 9,697 lineal feet. I also want to mention to the advisory board that we did see a 9% increase in materials and contract pricing. Questions? No? Threw a lot of numbers at you. Yes, Mr. Dye?
Jake Dye. When do we start bumping up against the capacity of the contractor?
So the contractor has brought in another barge. We'll be operating 3 barges full-time.
Okay.
And when we started our conversations way back early January of this year, I shared my conversation with the contractor to make sure that they were able to keep up with the demand we were proposing. And they assured me they were. They brought in another barge and brought in another crane. So I feel confident that they'll be able to meet our needs. We shall see.
Ron Ludwig, what about staffing? All we ever hear about is can't get people to work. Do they have the staff necessary to operate 3 barges continuously?
I hope so. They assured me that they will. City staff is actually, we have one position that we added to our budget, and that is because we are going to have a full-time crew manufacturing seawall panels to keep up with design, to keep up with the demand, and we're going to have one full-time crew doing nothing but like depressions, cap repairs, things of that nature. So we feel very confident that we're going to meet what we've proposed.
Oh, Bob Knabe, are those positions filled and working now?
As of to date, I just lost my senior crew chief, which is a supervisory role. He is the gentleman that supervises the maintenance crews, so I have to fill that position, and during that time, I'll be covering that position. But all positions have been filled, including the new one.
other questions or comments?
Thank you very much.
All right, and vacant lot and staging analysis.
Afternoon, for the record, Gary Disher. Let's see here, this is a response to y'all's question last time, when are we going to run out of vacant lots? So hopefully this will help us look into the crystal ball a little better here. And I'll start with a table for PGI. It's going to want to move here. It's very slow. All right. So what I've done is I've looked at it and I brought it all the way back from October 14th of 2020, which was a similar analysis all the way through. I did keep the total lots as of August 22nd in the subdivisions. So you can see as of October 14th, 2020, we had a total of 11.6% of the lots were vacant, 571. Within that couple year and a half stretch to the April 15th, 2022, we were already down to 8%. And then from April to August, we dropped down another 0.6%. So we went from 571 lots down to 363 vacant lots in just a matter of 22 months. So a pretty drastic swing on the decline in the number of vacant lots for the areas. Most notable is our northeast zone, Northeast 2. We had 22 lots available, vacant lots, and we're down to just 13, so just 2.4% of that whole subdivision zone is vacant at this point. So there's not a whole lot. Good thing is we got Northeast 1, and this is bridge constricted, of course. We've got a decent amount still left, 67 in Northeast 1, so it may need a little bit longer barge times to get across the way over to Northeast 1 to be able to service that area. Northwest as well, only 3.6%, 32 lots out of 884, so that's definitely not a lot of lots in that whole zone there. The southeast, which is considered the bird section, we're still at 145, so we've got a pretty good amount of vacant lots in that portion of the subdivisions. Let's see if I can get that scroll down. Now, staging possible. This is where we're actually able to put a barge up to a seawall. The tight corners back in the end of the canals, like we would do the special permits on, if we can't actually get the barges to those lots, if there's finger piers in front of them, if there's already docks and lifts, things of that nature, I think we used a clear area of 50 feet was necessary. They'll swing over docks, but if there was boat lifts and it was less than 50 feet, I had to eliminate them. So that's where our staging possible lots came in. So we're down to a total of 248 from 485 potential staging lots. So from 9.9 to 5.1. So we're down half of what we were just in those 22 months. Will this trend continue? It seems like things have slowed down on the building side, or at least you hear of that based on mortgage rates and things of that nature going up. So will housing start to slow up? I'm not sure. But if this clip keeps up, we may have another handful of years left before we don't have lots in certain areas.
Jake Dye. So I think you've already included this or thought about it, but when we're talking about the assessment that we make every year to cover the cost of seawall maintenance, clearly this is going to have an impact on it, because as the travel time increases for mobilization, it's going to slow things down, and it's going to be more expensive to do that.
Yeah,
So it affects the contractors the same way it does the seawall maintenance. As we get fewer and fewer lots, there's no place to stage from.
correct. Yeah, Here's a map here. I'll see if I can get it to scroll through. These are just the vacant lots themselves. Yeah, and you figure, I mean, you look back in an area like this, which is bridge constricted right here, there's just a handful of lots available in that whole section. Same with over here. Those are some of the worst areas with the older areas where we're right there on build out. See if I can
And
get
our
it to
work program in northeast, northwest for just next year is 60+% of the work program. So we're gonna be working it, but that's just the tip of the iceberg, really, still.
And I know Kathy gets frequent complaints based on the fact that people are sick and tired of having a storage yard or staging yard next to their house. But if you look at some of these subdivisions, where else do you go? Because there's nowhere else to go. Some of those staging lots are they're not going to be perpetual staging lots, but it's, when you're in that neighborhood for a bit, they're hit extra hard. And then I'll bring up the staging lots. So this is the overlay with the orange are lots we can't use for whatever reason. Some of them are actually like fully landscaped where it looks like we got a full lot. This may not be one of them here, but they'll go in and the whole lot is slapped full of trees. They've turned it into an orchard or whatever, or just a palm grove, and there's just no way to actually go in there unless you wipe out all the trees. So some lots may look good, but there's reasons behind why we're not able to use them.
So what do we do?
Well, we had hired Taylor, right, and that was part of their study, was to look at this and obviously increasing our production of seawalls or of seawall replacement, which you guys opted to, fund that this year or at least start that push. That's going to help. Will we be able to get everything done by the time all these lots are out of the way? I'm not sure. We've got the spoil site at Colony Point that we're working on the permitting for that. So if that opens that up as our key storage yard, I'm not sure what the permitting process is going to take. I'm betting a couple of years out by the sounds of some of our other permits. So we're definitely working towards making it a viable entity. We have to be able to access these lots to be able to do what we do.
As Mr. Dye points out, all of this begins to factor into the increased costs of replacing a seawall. And as we've seen over the last couple of years, it's not been easy to get an increase in the assessment. Perhaps there's a two-pronged approach here. We need to make sure council fully understands the predicament that this is and the catastrophe that may be awaiting us. We just have no place to stage, and what it's going to cost, and are prepared to move forward proactively as they've said they will do, and aggressively, because I think we're going to have to be more aggressive than even what you proposed back when we recommended the $1,200 assessment fee for PGI. I don't know what the number is, but I'm wondering if we shouldn't be getting a start on that before we're hardly done with the budget process now, but I'm wondering if it wouldn't be worthwhile gearing up before the budget process gets underway so that it's top of mind, high priority for the council. And we'll have I don't mean before November or anything, because we will have a sea change of council members. So maybe one of the first things that new council members should be hearing, as well as the old council members, is here's a looming problem that you're going to have to deal with. And be prepared, and we have an idea on how we can deal with it, but you need to be aware that it's coming. So at least that'd be my opinion.
Jake Dye, and it's not just the cost. As these lots get built up, there are fewer and fewer lots are available for staging, and everybody's going to be trying to use them. That's going to be a major irritant to neighborhoods. There's no way to avoid tracking dirt and stuff onto the road, especially this time of the year. So that's just, it's going to be a mess, and it's going to be an irritant to those neighborhoods. It's going to be a cost associated for everybody. It's not just the travel time, but we're going to find that we're going to need extra barges for mobilization, where you used to be able to go from a lot, 2 lots down from where you're working. Now you're going to be going as much as a mile away from your work, and so you're going to need an extra barge just to haul the materials, so you're not running back and forth. It's going to have an impact on us.
It'll probably change the way that the game has been played, because it's going to have to, right?
Yeah.
Where usually you're loading from your same barge onto the deck of that barge, but like you're mentioning, maybe there's just a material push boat pushing a sled with materials just back and forth. But then you'll also need something at your landing yard, a piece of machinery to actually get the materials off of that. So you're talking 2 cranes then, or 2 excavators, things of that nature. So it's going to be an interesting.
The game's
thing to get
changing.
around. It is. And then for everyone that does all the residential stuff, all the standard dock and lift construction, things of that nature, as them folks have been used to using the vacant lots, and as they get used up, a lot of the houses that they're building now, they don't give you the side yards that they did in the old section, where you could easily run a piece of equipment down between 2 houses. It's hard enough to get our muck truck through the side yards in some of these locations, because they're taking them right out to the setback lines and then adding generator pads and AC pads and everything else. So it's definitely making access very difficult.
You can't even get lawnmowers through there anymore.
Not anymore, no.
Jeff D'Amico, just so I'm clear, so if this spoil site comes to be, is the idea that immediately everything will come out of that, or will we continue to use the remaining lots?
Yes, sir. Continue to use the
Until they're
remaining
there.
lots until we can't anymore, would be the thought.
Okay.
That's just our last straw that we would have to be able to actually load and unload from.
Okay.
Now, we still have to run through an alternatives analysis, similar to what we did with Buckley's Pass. So we've got to look at everywhere around Punta Gorda. I've got to work with a consultant on this. And we basically have to build a matrix, or the consultant will build a matrix and say which one of these particular construction yards may have the least impact to everything from, the bugs, the bunnies, the birds, the bees, the people, everything around it, which is the most viable location for this yard. And that's what we had to do on Buckley's Pass. There was a six location analysis done. The problem is there are very few alternative locations to even attempt something like this. So that's going to be a tough one there. We have the end of Bow Harbor, which dead ends into the canal system. But that's just basically a short section of guardrail and 30 feet of grass between the hammerhead and the end of the road, so there's not much of a staging yard there. Up at Columbian, I think, dead ends into, the road just kind of comes in and dead ends into a canal system, but then you've got all the power lines above you there, so that's not a great location. And then other than that, there really aren't any.
The Albatross Bal Harbor property?
The Albatross, there is that location, yep, but that's a
Pretty
very
skinny.
very skinny, yep. Be a very long yard. And then unless you've got, we come in and take down a piece of, which this is obviously in a developer's hand and they're not gonna wanna let go of it. Do you get a landing yard in one of these kind of places? But I just don't see that happening. Values are just way too high for that. And most of this site down here is all mangroves and more or less wetland, so the developer was only really touching up in here, and then one little, I think, spine road with a marina basin down here was part of the proposal. I don't know where that one stands at this point. But there's definitely not much else available for landing yards.
And I'm just looking at this, the vacant lot shown there, Bal Harbor and Marion, as a construction project all ready to go there.
Let's see, Bal Harbor and Marion,
Yep.
scrolling up. Yep.
You've got that fenced off and,
Oh, this
Basin.
big yard here?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, that one we couldn't stage anyways because it was full of finger piers. couldn't get the barge close enough to actually swing anything onto
Oh,
it, so
the docks.
it was off of our radar. But it's, so they're actually going to construction now. Well,
Yep, or they've got it fenced.
at least they're
I'm not
starting
sure what's
something,
going
yeah.
on. Any other questions for Mr. Disher on this subject?
I know we've rang this bell now for several years, so we've,
We need to ring it a little louder, I'm
we keep
afraid.
ringing it, yeah.
The British are coming or something, you know,
Right.
whatever it takes.
yeah.
Yeah, Ron Ludwig, I just want to commend you for taking the effort to do this for us based on our discussions last time we met. This is excellent, thank you.
No problem, sir. Thank you much. You're welcome.
Keep it up.
I shall try.
All right, any other comments, questions? We then go to, any other staff comments for the good of the order? Member comments? I have just one, it's a semi-lengthy one. I had the need to do some clarification on terms of service. And just as I know Tim knows, he is ending his first term. And I assume since you've taken the application, you will be resubmitting to be on the committee, to be reappointed effective for the November meeting. Because I think you're done on November 1st for this term. At least that's what I show. So the clarification has to do with how taking a unexpired term gets counted. So an unexpired apparently is counted as a full term. We are limited to 3 terms, which includes whatever period of time that was an unexpired term. So after that, it's 3 years, and apparently the interpretation is done. You don't sit out a year and come back. So my term is going to be up as of January. I will have served my 3 full terms. Tim is going to be on there if appointed again and could serve until 28 sometime, 11/28. It looks like Jeff, you could go, and Ron, you could go, and whoever replaces Fred could go to 2030. So you will be carrying the burden of all of these issues. Mr. Knabe and Mr. Dye, unfortunately, you can get out of here, but not until 2026, according to my count. So good luck.
Make it that long, right?
Yeah, you might want to verify that with the clerk's office just to make sure, but that was my quick count of what we have left in us, so. All right, any other committee comments? We are adjourned.